Hi, everyone. What a beautiful room, is it? Who of you has been on the AWS Summit yesterday? Please raise your hands. Okay, I see a couple of hands raised. So, well, that was a huge stage, impressive one, but to be honest, I prefer this personal touch here with you as our partner, so kind of a personal partner engage here. Yeah, good to have you here. I'm Andreas. I'm head of engineering for CoreMedia Content Cloud, the core product, and Frank Wienberg and I will give you a short update on technology and architecture from a product perspective, something that we previously mostly have done on the developer conference. So this will be more high level, obviously. We don't have a lot of developers here, hopefully. So without further ado, let me hand over the pointer to Frank, and
Thank you,
he will
Andreas.
start. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome from my side too. I'm Frank Wienberg. I'm the lead architect for CoreMedia for a couple of years now. I've been with CoreMedia. I just realized longer than when the first partner signed up. So I can even beat you with that. But that means some of you may know me for quite a long time, but it's actually my first time talking here on the partner engage. So I'm happy about that to also be here now. So usually I do developer conference talks. So I try to do it a bit less technical, but I'm sure you can handle that. So let me quickly guide you through the topics. We have a variety of topics here today. I start with our new deployment platform. That's the new way to deploy CoreMedia, which we will implement ourselves, and which we starting with a new release V13 offer for to be used by you. Then I'll look a bit under the hood. So two things that might not really affect you or concern you, but I think it could be interesting to know how this works under the hood. So one thing is that we changed our inter-service protocol from CORBA to gRPC. And the other thing is how the integration of CoreMedia Content Cloud and CoreMedia Engagement Cloud works. So I'm going to show you a bit architecture there. Yeah, so my last topic then will be the way we will deliver features, or we start delivering features now with V13. It changed a bit, so we have more of a separation between platform and the features delivered through plugins. Yeah, and then I'll hand over to Andreas for the security part, the update of our security process that we hand over to you, and the very interesting topic of how we change our development, software development process to be AI first. So multi-premise, that's a term we coined because we always talk about offering our software in the cloud as a service, and also allowing you to run it anywhere you want. And as partners, you probably do that. So you don't just buy our service, but you do that. You want to do that yourself. And so I would like to really stress this, that this is our strategy, and it will remain our strategy, that we don't become a pure SaaS company, but we will continue to support you in deploying our software anywhere you want, and we are even going to make this better. And the reasons why, we totally understand the reasons why you would want to deploy our software somewhere else, because the thing is compliance and legal reasons, like it must be hosted in Europe. Then some customers just want the independence from AWS. They may be competitors of Amazon, so they don't want to insert coins into the Amazon machine, even indirectly. And our service runs on AWS. And well, some customers just have, or US partners have existing infrastructure that you want to reuse. And so it makes sense to deploy that there. There are some use cases, so you can do a lot of things with our service offering, because it's more a PaaS partially than a full SaaS. So you can customize and adapt the software, but there are some use cases for which you need to host things yourself. So if you have really well tailor-made CMS services, you may want to deploy everything in your own cloud or on-premise. And then for some of you, it is the business model to offer your customers the full package. So you customize our software and you run it and operate it for them. So, and we of course respect that business model, and so we don't become cloud only. So how do we do that? Well, if you heard any talk of my colleague Felix Simmendinger about Kubernetes on the developer conference or on the CoreMedia user group, you know about that we really put Kubernetes into the focus. So Kubernetes is, for us, it is the abstraction that allows our software to be run anywhere, but so far we, didn't give a lot of prefabrication how to do that. And Felix has been researching on that for years now, and it now finally comes to fruition that we can now offer you with V13 Kubernetes deployment manifests that you can use for your production deployment, for your development systems, and so on. So Kubernetes multi-premise means everything is based on Kubernetes, or let's say on cloud native standards, where cloud native does not mean cloud proprietary. So we don't use AWS or Azure specific things that only they offer, but cloud natives means technologies that are standard and run in any cloud or even on your laptop. And this is true for Kubernetes, and this virtually allows you to run our software anywhere. So these Kubernetes deployment manifests are the first step to standardize this so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel for this deployment. And you can use the same artifacts that we use to deploy this in our service to implement your own deployment. So what we essentially give you is a quick start. So if you already operate CoreMedia with your own Kubernetes-based deployment, probably you already do that. You might want to align with what we offer. If you don't do it yet and looking for a solution, so we have this prefabrication now, so we have a much better starting point. And if you align with what we do here, then it makes it easier to switch. So if a customer regret the decision to do self-hosting and wants to move to our service, well, we have the same basically the same setup then. Theoretically, it also works the other way around, of course. So on top of this, so we cannot give prefabrication for how you orchestrate everything, like monitoring and scaling are things that your cloud provider solves for you, or that your IT, your own data centers have solutions for. So we won't force anything upon you there, but it builds on top of Kubernetes as a standard, so you can use any monitoring and logging framework tools you want. Overall, this should reduce the operational complexity for you, and the goal behind this is, of course, to ship features to the customer faster. So if we have the same releases deployed everywhere the same way, then it means it doesn't take years for a new feature that we build or that you as a partner build for your customer to go into production. Okay, so that was about the new deployment model. Now the two bit more technical topics, but which I think are still interesting for you. So on the developer conference, when we announced that we finally want to get rid of CORBA, we got some applause for that. Because, CORBA is really a working horse. It's running, it's stable, so there's no urgent need to get rid of it. But I think it's a good thing that we do that in time, so that we have done it now. So our strategy there is to do it in time, so that we give you time to switch, to choose the point in time when to switch to the new protocol. yeah, the solution is to use gRPC instead of CORBA. So this is just the protocol for our unified API, the protocol with which our client applications talk to the content server and workflow server in CMCC. gRPC is quite similar to CORBA actually, but it's the modern variant, I'd say. And the good thing for you is that for the lifetime of V13, there will be no need to go away from CORBA. If you have a running setup that works stable, there's no need to change that, but it will be supported for the full support lifecycle of V13. So for V14, this may look different, but anyway, it doesn't affect you that much because it's a protocol used under the hood. So if it's CORBA or gRPC, you probably won't even notice. Of course, gRPC has some advantages. It's the more modern protocol. It's built on the HTTP protocol, so it benefits from things like HTTP2 has like multiplexing, for example, but it has also many attributes that CORBA already had, but in a more, let's say, cloud-friendly way. So it fits Kubernetes much better, makes Kubernetes setups easier. It helps you reduce your firewall configuration and so on. So it's kind of, for me, it's just the modern version of CORBA. So it's really a great fit. We have completed this migration. So we have in parallel, we have a full implementation of the whole protocol as gRPC now, starting with 2512.0.1. So we needed one patch update to finalize this. And it's now in V13. So from now on, if you are on .1, you can just switch from CORBA to gRPC with a simple configuration, but you can also stay on CORBA for the lifetime of V13. So you can opt in when you are ready to do so, or you can try it out without regrets. It should behave exactly the same. If you plan a new Kubernetes deployment or new operation model, then I would suggest to start with gRPC because it really makes it easier. And also do this based, of course, on our Kubernetes manifests. Of course, we continuously validate that this actually works and does the same thing and behaves identically with test pipelines and so on. To be honest, we ourselves do not yet have switched on gRPC in our service, because we already have solved the problems around CORBA, how to deploy it, how to make it play well. And it runs stable, so there's no need to change it now, but of course we will in time. Okay, third topic is a more architectural topic. So you in the afternoon on the Connect, you will see the cool stuff. So you will see the new features. And will now present the bit more boring stuff, hopefully not for you if you're a bit into architecture. So how does under the hood the integration of Content Cloud and Engagement Cloud works? So how do we get these cool personalization features to work? So when we acquired Engagement Cloud or added Engagement Cloud to our portfolio, from day one, we had an integration, quite simple one. So now the strategy is to really deeply integrate these two products. And this means, so we set some goals, of course, when we started this project. And this means we looked at it from the user perspective. So for the user, it should really be a seamless experience, using one UI and being able to access content and the personalization features without friction. So from a technical point of view, however, and also from a business point of view, we wanted to keep the loose couplings between both systems because we want to stay composable. We still want to give you or your customers the choice whether you will need or want Engagement Cloud or not, or you just need Engagement Cloud, you don't need a CMS, whatever. So composable means you can pick and choose, but of course the best prefabrication, and if you want the full stack DXP, we give you now a much better, deeper integrated solution. Another thing that's typically CoreMedia is the event-driven updates. So for a user, changes should appear in the UI without refreshing or reloading. And then we have, of course, to solve the technical issue of shared identity if you have two systems, and we now also start editing, writing, modifying things in the others in the second system. Then we need to propagate the user identity to Engagement Cloud so that, for example, if a user creates an A/B test, then the A/B test is created in the name of that same user that edited the content. So the separation of loose coupling, separation of those two systems also means that the data stays within these two systems. So here's the rough architecture. We have Content Cloud with the well-known components like Content Server that manages all your content, then Headless Server for the preferred delivery solution, and Studio for the editing and authoring of content. And on the right-hand side, Engagement Cloud, where you have the actual personalization engine, and the campaign management, the analytics engine or analytics data also. And now let's first look at this from the viewpoint of the web users who visit the site. So we use client-side personalization here. So that means the browser talks to both systems. For the delivery use case, these systems don't really know each other. They don't have any protocol, any exchange. They don't talk to each other. The browser is the point where it works together. All we have here is that Content Cloud stores some external references to objects in the Engagement Cloud, like A/B tests or segments. So it looks a bit different when we look at the Studio user. The Studio user interacts with content usually, but now they are also supposed to interact with personalization configuration, like creating an A/B test, adding content to that A/B test, assigning a segment to content, and so on. So we need some kind of integration, and now in this iteration of this architecture, this integration architecture, we put this into this Studio server. So this is the endpoint for the requests of the Studio user, and this one talks to a REST API through which we can access all data in Engagement Cloud and even modify it. So it really became important that not anybody can do this. So this is this authentication service at the top is the security measure, and to keep a loose coupling between these systems, because this is the way that Studio is allowed to create resources in Engagement Cloud. So it's inter-service or cross-service authentication here. Then we have a request from the Studio user that concerns some Engagement Cloud objects. And here, because the Studio service, this integration service has these elevated rights, can now propagate the identity of the user to Engagement Cloud. So the creation of A/B test is done in the name of that user. And of course, we introduced another thing that's typically CoreMedia, that we put a dependency track cache into every component. And of course, that's not just for fun, but because this implements the push events to the Studio client, which allow the Studio UI to update whenever anybody changes anything also in Engagement Cloud, like the users are used to for content. If you change content, they will see it in real time or almost real time. Yeah, so that's about the architecture behind the features you see in the afternoon. So like I said, the use case, the exciting stuff you see in the afternoon, but now you know what's going on under the hood. So my last topic before I hand over to Andreas is that we separated platform and feature delivery. So we succeed. We have been doing this for years, or planning this for years, and have been using plugins for smaller things. But with V13, for the first time, we managed to deliver the main features of the new release as plugins, and I think this is a great advantage. It's a great success that we finally were able to do that. So we still commit on delivering features with the platform, but we now prefer to deliver features as plugins. And what I would suggest for you as partners when you customize the system is also to use plugins. And the main reason is it makes the system easier to update. And I can show you a bit how that works. So the core idea behind this is that we have this well-known multi-application platform, the CMS, and what you're probably used to is that you customize the product in the blueprint. So this concept of plugins means that certain features or behavior of the system is externalized into plugins. And the big advantage here is that they have their own release life cycle. So the whole platform and blueprint have one monolithic release life cycle. You have to update the plugin, the blueprint, and all the platform will be moved to the next version. But now we have independent release life cycles. And this means we can deliver features faster. So if we deliver features by plugins, so what's the platform doing then? So what's it for? Of course, you still need the platform updates, but mainly for security reasons, for performance improvements like publication performance, which we are currently improving. We will update the third-party dependencies and modernize the infrastructure, like switch to a new Kubernetes version or to a new build tool. But all this is non-breaking by design so that the plugins continue to work. And the platform is released on a well-known cadence. You probably know this chart, this table from our documentation site. When does which version of the long-term service release of the platform come out, and how long is it supported? Which Spring Boot version does it contain? So this is all very predictable. But let me show you on a timeline how the interplay of the platform and the plugins works. So we have version CMCC V13 here at the bottom, and two, let's say, important plugins on the top. So we have native personalization and Kio Copilot. So these are the main features of V13. They are plugins. So we have these support updates here, these increments for security reasons in the platform. They always have an overlap, so to give you half a year to move to the next version, and we still support the older version. So this is why this becomes this kind of staircase. We currently we have independent versions of these plugins. So we just released the 2.0 version of native personalization for this event today. You will be see this version in the presentation. And of course, Copilot also has versions, but they can be different. So they are really independently released. It's not completely independent from the platform, however. Of course, you need a minimum version of the platform to be able to switch to the latest version of the plugin. But I think that's quite normal for plugin architectures, that you need to update your platform regularly. You need to do that anyway for security reasons, and then you can move to the new feature or the updated feature by updating the plugins, by just increasing the version number. Yeah, so why I would recommend you to also try to deliver customizations or features that you offer for your customers by plugins is you really get faster and safer upgrades. If you modify Blueprint code, or even if you use Blueprint extension, it doesn't work that smoothly as with plugins. Currently, not yet all use cases are possible with plugins, but if you have a use case where you don't find the right plugin API, then talk to us and we will see if we can add extension points and make it possible. Another advantage is that with plugins you can pick and choose features. So that means if a customer doesn't need a feature, they just don't install the plugin. It's much easier than to have this monolithic platform and try to disable things the users don't need. Like I said, the API for plugins is much more, even more stable, let's say, than the public APIs you use in the Blueprint. So it also protects whatever you build to work with the next version of CoreMedia. And it's a clearer distribution of responsibilities, which feature is maintained by whom. All in all, you also get faster time to market for your features and faster updates of the CoreMedia system. So try it out. Talk with us if you are unsure of how to implement plugins. Well, I think it's really a good thing. So with that, I hand over to Andreas.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, I hope there's still some capacity left in your minds. So for two more topics, which are a bit more generic, less CoreMedia related, but we're working on them as well. And one, you have seen that already, or we talked about that already last year at the Partner Engage and the Developer Conference. First one is about supply chain security. So what does that mean? So it's basically about we need to assess the software that we are running in our systems. It's not something that only concerns our customers or you as partners. We have the same issue internally, right? We have a CISO that asks us, if you want to run a new software, give us some information about that. It's not that we are doing that currently, but we have to improve that process because it's still cumbersome and causes a lot of frictions for partners and customers. So the current process basically looks like you're pretty aware of that. I'm sure you can ask our support team if you have a CVE that does not appear on our security help center. You can ask them if that's an issue or not, and they will provide you with the respective information. We have all that in our database, but in the first place, we didn't want to overwhelm you with too much information. But we recognized, well, it's not a good process for everybody, and there are standards that can solve these issues. So the plan still is to provide you with two artifacts, standard-based. First ones are SBOMs, standardized file in cyclone.dx format that can be consumed by tools like dependency check, for example, which contains all our standard direct and transitive dependencies in the product, including licenses and so on. That's not the most interesting part. We have that information to some extent already, but this is the key changing part. So VEX files are rather new format, which include basically all our ratings of every CVE that appears for all the dependencies in our product. Short disclaimer, you have to have a look at those CVEs anyway in your project because you might be using these libraries differently than we do. So, well, I said we talked about that last year, so why did it took so long? It's not a technical issue, to be honest. It's more kind of the database that we were using was closely tied to processes that were well established in the engineering department, and we had to change that. And it might sound simple, but these changes are sometimes more complicated than technical ones. And in the meantime, there was V13. We had to release that, prioritize that. Now it's out of the door, so we focus on that again, and it will be available in 2026. So it's not release dependent. It will be available for V12 releases on the LTS track as well. So you will be able to benefit from that soon. That was already the first topic. Second topic, the hottest one in our industry at the moment. And I think from my perspective, as someone who's 45 years old, it's kind of the biggest disruption after the internet itself. It's AI first product development, or AI in general. Don't worry, I won't bore you too much with details about AI agents work. You all know that, I'm pretty sure, and you would look at me like my daughter when I try to explain to her how to do her math homework. So for good reasons. But I want to share our personal journey in our software development department, applying AI first development for our product. It's a difficult topic, difficult in the sense it's a big change for developers, especially with risks and uncertainties, but well, it's one that is worth taking. I think the outlook and the potential is huge. So where did we start? We actually started by providing our customers with an AI product, Kio. You probably all know that. And at that time, we did not use it for software development, surprisingly, because the models weren't just good software developers at that time. But in 2025, more and more developers at CoreMedia asked us for having GitHub Copilot license to experiment a bit. And well, we said, yeah, why not? Take the license. We didn't put any pressure on them at that time, but something changed in 2025. Later in the year, Anthropic released Opus, and it was all over the news, right? AI suddenly was a really good software developer, providing really impressive results. So, well, we had to have a closer look at that as well. So in February 2026, we launched a trial internally with already 65 people, which is kind of a big trial, not only developers, because Claude also provides advantages for other departments, of course. After the trial ended, we did 2 surveys internally that I'd like to share with you. The first one was about GitHub Copilot in January, and we recognized basically everyone who has a license, they use it on a daily basis, and they themselves think it improves their productivity. But more interesting to me as the head of engineering was the blockers that they identified. So even though the news said, well, Opus can do impressive things, they still saw a lot of hallucinated code, code that didn't fit our architecture. The second survey about Claude yielded similar results. So they were quite happy with a quite solid NPS score of 32. So they were pretty happy with the tool, but they were asking for, well, higher usage limits. That's easy to solve, but the interesting one is the shared specs for our stack, which points into the same direction as the things that we saw with Copilot. So we had to change something. Until then, we were growing organically. Basically, we didn't put pressure, we didn't organize a lot of things, so we had to do something differently. And because we recognized the problem is not the AI, it's what the AI knows about our product. And yeah, how did we do that? So survey ended in April 2026. I started reaching out to Microsoft and GitHub partners to see if we can get some kind of training so that they help us setting up things properly. And Roy, at the same time, talked to our partner BitGrip, to Jan-Hendrik Kempel, the CTO, who BitGrip basically had faced similar challenges at their company, and I'm pretty sure you all do. But they were one step ahead of us. And well, we said, we have a trusted partner, why not work with them? And so we started with a series of workshops, which is still ongoing since April, to, well, introduce everyone to that topic that they are already using, but it requires a lot of additional things. So what the model that BitGrip introduced to us was something, a model that is similar to the one used in the automotive industry for autonomous driving. It consists of 5 levels. So first level is where developers still do coding themselves in the IDE, no AI usage at all. Level 2, reactive AI, developers start using AI for generating single lines of code, maybe a function. Level 3, we have proactive agent usage. So we have a single agent working in a code base, maybe even implementing a feature. Level 4, which is, well, where agents start collaborating, we are getting into the reactive agent loop. Things start to get interesting, and you can expect a lot bigger efficiency gains in that level. And then level 5, this is maybe where we all want to end up at some point, is no manual zero coding at all, right? Everything is done only by spec, so there's a shift from how things are done. We leave that up to the AI, who knows it better, hopefully. And we take care of requirements that we have from customers, technical specs that we get from our architects. At the beginning of these workshops, we did a small assessment, and guess where we thought we are at the moment. It's somewhere in between level 2 and level 3. But that was already at the beginning of April, and I think since then already the needle moved up a bit to level 3. And we also thought, of course, about where we want to be at the end of 26. And well, we all thought it would really be something achievable to do that, to reach level 4, at least in most of the departments and teams in the software engineering part. And that, yeah, would be really something great if we can get there. So how do we get there? We basically, I said one thing already. So we started a series of workshops. We are training everybody basically in the company, in the engineering. We started in engineering because this is where our core product lives. And just yesterday, Jan-Hendrik was in our office and had a workshop with 10 developers for 2 days. So next, we were using GitHub Copilot and Claude so far. And we want to continue using both, but harness engineering is an important topic as well. And both tools slightly behave differently still. And GitHub is still an essential part in our product development. It provides us with more flexibility, governance tools, and so on. So we decided to focus on Copilot first. Claude is still there for advocates in the company. Third one, now that we know which conventions we have to use, architects can start working on how to set up all this context. Do we use architecture decision records? Where do they live? And so on. So architects are currently working on setting up these best practices for all the teams. And this is where the fourth step come in, and the interesting one. So teams take all this information and start working on their products individually so that we can speed up this process. It's not done in a single day, but we are taking that seriously, and we want to show that to everyone, especially also internally to the developers, by making that explicit. That's mostly brownfield, so-called brownfield, so our existing product that we are working on, but we also decided to test or want to get of these huge promised efficiency gains by defining a pilot case, Kio Studio. This is something that you will hear about in the afternoon. So basically a new approach, a new app designed as a conversational approach to content management and analytics. I think Roy will tell you something about that at the Connect in the afternoon. So what's often forgotten? How do we measure success? We want to make sure that we will reach that goal. First of all, we want to see how many of our tasks are done by agents, how far they get without manual intervention by developers. So 50% is kind of conservative goals, if you look at that, or at marketing promises from Anthropic. But it's still, this is something we agreed on is achievable at CoreMedia by now. And throughput in general, of course, we want to get faster with all that. It's an investment, and we want to see the return on investment by at least doubling our story throughput. So, but one non-negotiable, very important concept for everyone is the human has always be in the loop at the end. Safeguards and all that stuff are very important when you start automating things and let the agent do or build code. And we don't have that from the beginning, so we will have to improve in that respect as well, set up the guardrails and so on. So I was talking a lot about our perspective, but what does that mean for you? So assuming that you are using agents in your projects as well, you will also be able to ship features faster than before by using the context that we provide. You will see more AI-driven features in CoreMedia. I just mentioned Kio Studio, for example, or you've seen Kio already, and you see how fast it evolves. And by using Copilot and Claude internally at the same time, our goal is, of course, to not vendor lock into a certain AI tool. We want it to be available for every tool that you are using on your premises. But before we have all that, like I said, it's a journey and we are in the middle of that. We want to prove that it works internally. I think the market shows it works, but we have a special big setup as well, and we have to see if it's really beneficial to you. We don't want to ship something that just lives alongside a lot of code that you already have and that doesn't work. But we will talk about that later still. So this is where we are today. AI adoption is real at CoreMedia, full steam ahead, not headless, so human in the loop principles and so on. We have to make sure that we adhere to that. And yeah, let me briefly sum up what Frank and I were talking about. First thing, multi-premise. One operational model for cloud and on-premise, important one. gRPC, the modern inter-service communication protocol for the entire system, including observability. We now have a deep event-driven integration with Content and Engagement Cloud. Platforms and plugins are there to further reduce the upgrade burden and speed up feature adoption in the future. And well, I gave you a quick update on our supply chain security efforts and our AI-first adoption journey. So a lot of topics for a rather short talk, but we will be here for the rest of the day. So reach out to us. I really want to hear from your experiences, how you tackled the AI adoption in your company. And well, Frank want to hear about the architecture, of course. Yeah, so I think somebody mentioned that before. I'm not sure. There will be a developer conference in November, and we will certainly talk about all this harness engineering part there as well, and give you more details about that. And hopefully we also already have running software by then.
And it's not only the two of us, but there are many of our CoreMedia colleagues here who are experts for some of these topics. And maybe I will then dispatch you if you don't already know them, but just talk to us and we'll find somebody who can answer your questions.
Okay. I think that's a German Punktlandung, 10:20. So not much room left for questions, but yeah, like I said, we are still here. Thank you.
Thank you.